This is Creepy and Geeky. Welcome to Creepy and Geeky. I'm your host, Robert, and on today's episode, I'm ending my series on Edgar Wright films with Last Night in Soho with returning guest Al Davidson. But first, Donna and I are talking about the stuff we got into this last week. How's it going, Donna?
Hey Robert, it's going pretty well. I hope all
Good.
has been well with you. Work is work, life is life, but
Yeah.
I look forward to these conversations. It keeps me sane.
Me too. Me too. I very much enjoy having you here every week to talk about, some the fun stuff we saw or we read. Mostly we just talk
Yeah,
about the things we see.
yeah,
But
exactly.
we get occasionally to, watch some cool stuff at the theaters, and then, I like to talk about all the new trailers coming up because it keeps me excited for all the new stuff coming out. Not that
I
I'm not
agree.
already excited, but it's always fun to have somebody to talk to. That's the one thing. Like, I'll admit, I don't have a lot of friends. So I don't talk to very many people outside of my immediate family, which is my wife and kids. And so outside of those people, this podcast helps me do that, helps me keep
Yeah.
connected with people. And especially with you, you and I have been friends for a pretty long time now.
Yeah, I don't even know
Um,
how many years it's
I
been
don't
now,
even know.
dude.
Yeah,
No
exactly.
idea.
It's been at least, I gotta say, it's got to be at least 7 or 8 now, I think.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
about right.
yeah, which is crazy because I don't think I've had any friend that long.
At least not when you're an adult, you know? It's like
No, exactly.
I don't
No,
think that's how we do things when we're adults.
exactly. And here's the funny thing is like you and I, we don't talk daily. Sometimes
No.
we do. Like if like I don't know, if like we're both in like a good headspace to be able to talk off and on throughout the week, we do. But both of us have a lot going on at times, and you know, doing that is kind of a lot. So, it's funny because as you get older, I feel like, you still want to talk to people, and I do. But like you begin to understand that, everybody's got their own stuff going
Yeah.
on, especially as you get older, you got more shit going on.
Yeah.
Um, but so it's nice to have these like weekly talks, to catch up. And we always do too, like always off air, we're always catching up on things just before we record. So that is nice. I will say it's definitely nice having you as a friend and being able to um not only talk about this fun stuff, but also talk about our lives and catch up a little bit every week. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Likewise. You just making me blush over here. It's like but it is. It's very nice. And I think out of all the people I talk to on IG, I think I talk to you more than anybody else. So, I'm glad that we've been friends this long. And we don't
Oh, me
always
too.
agree on everything. We don't
Oh
always like
no.
the same things, but we always are just friends. And
Right.
so when I say this coming over here, it keeps me saying, I am not shitting you. It really keeps me saying, I need this respite from the rest of the
Yes.
world. So yeah, so I will let you know. I actually saw a movie this week.
I saw that. You
I
saw the
went to the
same movie I
theater.
saw.
You always see movies. That's nothing new. Everybody knows you go to the movies. But I did get to see the exact same movie. So Thunderbolts, the Thunderbolts.
Thunderbolts. Yes, the new MCU movie, which we're going to talk about briefly here, very briefly, because Donna and I are going to be talking about it on a future episode in length. Spoilers aplenty in that
Oh
episode,
yeah.
but right now it'll be spoiler free. But yeah, what did you think? What are your kind of overall like
So
feelings on
much
it?
fun. It is
Yeah.
so much I had so much fun watching this, and not a lot of people in my theater when I went, but then again,
Mm,
I went in the afternoon. I went in the matinee. I
yeah.
skipped I skipped work to go to see this movie. I mean, only in the afternoon, y'all. I am a responsible sorta kinda adult at this point. So,
I'm
it
not.
was a l it I said sorta, kinda. I didn't say it was, but it was fun. It was great fun. I'm glad that I got to see this in theaters and not in my
Right.
house because the experience was just more than I expected, and I enjoyed everybody in this movie. I
Yes.
I will
Yeah.
I will leave it at that because I feel if I talk too much, I'll sing too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. No, I feel the same as you. Like I don't I hesitate to call this a return to form for Marvel because I'm not one
No.
of those people who is always like, oh, every Marvel movie has sucked since Endgame because it hasn't. Like there's been very there's been quite a few movies that I've enjoyed since Endgame.
Yeah.
And so but this felt like a different movie on a different level, not
Mhm.
because they were doing something like overly different in terms of quality. They were going at it with a different story, like with familiar characters.
Mhm.
And so I think that that's what really kind of helped make it even better than the usual really good Marvel fare. Um, but yeah, I also did go see this in the afternoon. It was funny because I went at 3 o'clock. And when I came out of the theater, that's when I saw your post about that you saw it. So I was literally I literally told Katrina, I was like, oh, hey, Donna just saw it too.
Yeah, I
I was
wasn't
like,
missing
we're going to
that
get to
one.
talk about it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, between this and now getting excited waiting to see the Fantastic Four first steps,
Yes.
I'm super excited. Um so yeah, I know you probably saw something else though. That was the only thing I saw this week.
The only other thing I got to see was the 20th anniversary of Star Wars Revenge of the Sith.
Oh
So I
wow.
mean, yeah. So my son and I went to go see that together, um, which is unusual, but that him and I go to the movies together, mostly just because he's busier with work and having a young
Mhm.
kid and everything. But him being the big Star Wars fan and everything, we tried to. We've been trying to get out to all the re-releases. Apparently, we missed the Empire Strikes Back a few years back. But then we've caught everyone since then, the Return of the Jedi and the Phantom Menace before that.
Oh
So we're
nice.
trying to catch them all when AMC pulls them out. Um, but yeah, and apparently it did really well. It actually made like $25 million this last week in its
Jeez.
limited release like that. So it's like, okay, so people dug on it. Which I mean, to be fair, it's the best one of the prequel trilogy. I mean, I think most people agree with that. There's some people
Mhm.
who weirdly think one of the other two is better. Um, but yeah, no, it was a lot of fun to go check that out again on the big screen since I don't think we'd seen it since 2005 when my son
Exactly.
was like 8. So so it was good fun for him as well because he really enjoyed because that's his trilogy.
Right.
Our trilogy is the main original trilogy. His is the prequel trilogy. That's the one he grew up on. So I did don't yell at me. I did show him the originals before and throughout as well. Not you yelling at me, but the listeners yelling at me. I did show him plenty. He loves the original trilogy a lot as well. Just growing up when a specific trilogy is like during your time of being a
Right.
kid, that's going to be
That's
the
the
most
first time seeing it
effective.
in the theater. That's the
Yeah,
one. Yeah,
exactly.
that's my youngest favorite trilogy because that he
Yeah,
was about roughly around that age when we saw it too.
yeah,
So those are his movies.
yeah. Definitely, definitely. So, all right. Well, I know I've got like 5 trailers to talk about, and you've only got a couple. You said, I think.
Yeah, I only
Um,
have like 3, maybe. Maybe.
so why don't you go ahead and start first, and we'll just back and forth as usual.
Okay, so I think one of mine is probably gonna be on your list,
Probably.
and, that is gonna be the Weapons trailer.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was I was already over the moon and hyped for this
Oh yeah.
movie. I made a Barbarian episode where I talked about Zach Kreger and about this movie because I was highly anticipating it then, and it was
Yeah.
actually supposed to come out in 2026, so the fact that he jumped a year early is already having me, like,
Yeah.
frothing at the bits to go see the I mean, you even told me, what was it, that Jordan Peele let go some people because
Yeah,
they
he let
lost
go
their
of his
bidding war?
management team because
Yeah.
he didn't get the rights to it. Yeah.
So right there, that tells me this is gonna be phenomenal. Like, he probably read the script, saw where this was going, and was like, "I want this movie." Your thoughts on this trailer because it is bonkers.
It is very bonkers. It is it's I'm excited from like because Barbarian was one of those weird movies. I really need to get somebody on to talk about Barbarian for my show. I think I'll try to do that later on in the year.
I'll talk with you about
Okay.
Barbarian all
All
day
right. You're
long.
signed up. All right. We are done. Boom. But yeah, no, I need to like because Barbarian was a movie that I wasn't super hyped on when it
Mhm,
first came out. It looked interesting, but because of the way it was marketed, I was like, it looks okay, but I don't know. But then finally I like everybody started talking about it and the word of mouth was so big on it that I was like,
mhm.
crap, I need to go see this movie. And I was not let down. That movie is so bonkers off the wall that that you have to see it. And like I don't know, like to me that was the movie that I was expecting Malignant to be. Because Malignant, the way
I
everybody
will
talked
not
about
stand
I'm
for this
just
malignant slander.
I'm just saying like Malignant's fine, but it wasn't what I was expect when I finally saw Malignant, I was like, oh, this isn't
I
what I
get what you're
was
saying
hoping
though,
for. Yeah.
because but the thing about Barbarian is I actually am happy that they marketed the way that they did because
No,
it's very
exactly.
unsuspecting. And when you get to the
Yes.
layers of it, and I mean literally the layers of it, it's insanely
Yeah.
good. Like, it's the best horror, kind of horror that you would ever see.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's one of my favorite things to talk about is comedy people making horror films.
Yes.
They know what they're doing. I
And
mean,
I
it
think
is.
that's and I think that's why Jordan Peele really wanted Weapons is because it was by somebody who is known for making comedy. Previously, it was part of a sketch show.
Yeah,
Um,
whitest kids you know.
yeah, and then, and then turned around and started doing horror. And so I love that, like, and I hate that he didn't get it, but also at the same time, I'm just love that, these people are still like that this movie is getting made because this movie looks really, really interesting.
Yes, I
Um,
mean, the premise of it alone,
yes.
obviously people are coming out with their theories. I've seen so many Reddit theories about it's like a Pied Piper thing.
Yeah.
We're not going to know till we know. And
No, we're
he
not.
even Kreger said, you know, this movie it starts out one way and it's going to fork into something else. So
Which was what Barbarian did as well.
exactly what Barbara
So,
Smartly did as well.
yes.
So, yeah, I can't wait, just the clips. I honestly have been rewatching this freaking trailer for, like, the last 5 days. It's ridiculous how many times I've seen this
You
because
and
I'm
I,
just trying to catch any glimpse of anything.
yes. And that's what's funny is like I know there's so many people I talk to who don't watch trailers. They'll like hear about a story, like hear about a movie, and that'll be just enough. And I'm like, how can you not watch a trailer? Like, I need to watch the trailer. I need to see it. I'll need to watch it several times just to get like the little bits here and there, just to keep myself excited for it. Like, I
I mean,
can't
it's got a
imagine
hell of
being,
a cast though,
oh,
too.
yeah,
You got Brolin, we've got
Josh
Benedict
Brolin. Yeah.
Wong, we've got
Yeah.
Julia Garner. I mean, this
Yeah.
is gonna be interesting. I'm super hyped for it.
Yeah.
This is
This is
definitely
one of
what
the
I'm going
most
in the theater.
anticipated this year for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to the theater. There's no because I don't want this spoiled.
Yeah, you have
I
to.
can't
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah.
So that's my trailer. So I'll let you go now that I've been salivating and fangirling for like the last 5 minutes.
All right. Well, one of the trailers I have is for a TV show coming on the Sci-Fi Channel called Revival, and that is actually based on a Image comic book series. It's where a small town, like a small county, has um, a some of the people come back to life after they've died.
Really?
Yeah. And then you've got then the mystery is like and they shut down the town, like the county. They completely cut it off from the outside world because they're like and it because it only happens in this town. And so they shut it down, and then they've got a CDC guy who comes in to like help figure it out. And so you're following this woman, and this woman who's like the deputy. Her dad is the sheriff, um, and her and her sister are trying to figure out the mystery of what's going on. And so it's it I will say the trailer didn't excite me. Um, the comic book is really good. I would suggest checking that out because it's really good. But I'm 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 hoping that this is one of those instances where the trailers, just I feel like this probably would have been better on like a cable streamer or something like a
Hmm.
cable channel or a streamer or something like that. Being on sci-fi, I feel like well, I say that, but Chucky was fairly unencumbered by censorship, so I'll give it a little bit of a pass on that. Not like this is really violent or sexual or anything like that, but it can be kind of violent and gory at times. But it's very interesting looking. But yeah, I'm interested in seeing it. Um, but I will say I wasn't super excited. But I'm cautiously optimistic, like I like to say.
There's
So,
one that reminds me of a show, a BBC show years ago that was called, I think, In the Flesh, and it was
mm,
the same premise. Like people had died and they just
there
woke
were
up. Everybody kind
yeah.
of, yeah, got revived again, and that was a really good show. I'm interested in this one now that you've said that
There
these
was
are.
another one called Resurrection with Omar Epps, about a town that like had a very similar like revival. The
Mhm.
comic book came out right around the same time, like as Resurrection did. Like so, it was like this weird. It was kind of like in the water, like at that time, like these stories of people being revived
Right.
and everything. Um, so yeah, so it's interesting to see how the show handles it. It looks fairly um faithful to the comic book, and I know that um Aaron Kuntz is involved in it. He made the the Scare Package movies.
Mhm.
So he's involved in it. Tim Seeley, who's the writer of the comic book, he's involved in it as well. And Tim Seeley and I think Michael Morricone, they did the movie Revealer
Hmm.
a couple of years ago. They're involved in the making of the TV series as well. So I think they're all producers on it.
I definitely have to check
Yeah,
that out.
yeah. So, but yeah, Revival is what it's called, and it's a very very good comic book series as well from Image Comics. So, all right, what is your next thing?
My next thing was I just saw that they have now released a trailer for the third part of the Now You See Me series,
Yes.
and finally they did name it correctly. Now You See Me, Now You Don't.
Yep.
This one looks really cute. It looks like
It
we got
does.
some new people in the mix, and also the old players, and they even brought what is her name, Illa Fisher
Isla
back.
Fisher. Yeah.
Isla Fisher, thank you. So I'm a little excited for this. I mean, we all know it's there's no real stakes for these people. It's
Right.
they already pulled off the heist like 5 days before we saw
Right.
everything. But these movies are just so much fun, and that's what we need. We need lightness and fun,
Yeah.
and in a dark and weird turn that we're going. So I look forward to it. I love all of the actors in this film,
Yeah.
and I love the fact that they're bringing on some new people. I hope this is the last of it though, because I don't want this to go
Yeah.
on forever. Like,
No, I think
if
this would be a good way to end the trilogy, like end a
yeah,
trilogy. Yeah, no, I this was also on my list because I was excited. I like the first two movies. I know they're silly. I know they're kind of dumb. The twists aren't the best and everything like that, but they work for me. And so having all the original cast back, Mark Ruffalo is not in this one. He was the only one that I didn't see in
yeah.
this. But they've got all the original cast, including Morgan Freeman, back, and then yeah, Justice Smith, and Ariana Greenblatt, who's popping up in everything still. So because she was just in what Borderlands, and she was also young Ahsoka in the Ahsoka
Mhm.
show, and So she's
She
she's
got a
popping
good
up.
agent.
She does have a good agent. She's getting in everything. Um, but so I like besides having a good agent, she's a good actress and she just keeps
Yes.
getting cast in good stuff. So that's what's really good for her, especially for somebody so young.
Mm,
But yeah, no, it looks fun, looks silly. I mean, you gotta it's a turn your brain off kind of movie, I think. Not too much because you want to kind of figure out the twists as well.
yeah.
But I I'm
That's the
I
fun part of
look
it for me is seeing how they do all of the stuff that
right.
they do. I mean,
I'm a
we
sucker for stage magic,
yeah, I mean, once again, it's not high stakes, but it's a lot
No,
of fun. Those movies are
yeah,
entertaining as shit. I mean, I just
they
love
are.
them. I really don't care if you
Oh,
wanna nitpick about them or not. I think they're fun, and sometimes you just need a fun movie.
yeah,
That's a big
exactly.
reason why we had so many Ocean's 11 movies. They did the
Right,
heist like 15 days before, but we still watch those
right.
movies.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yes. But yeah, no, I'm excited for it. Well, hopefully be out soon. Um, so I there's a new Netflix movie coming out called Fear Street Prom Queen. So it's
Oof,
the
I've been
next
waiting.
next installment in the Fear Street series.
Yes.
Uh, I like the original three movies, the trilogy that they put out.
Mhm.
But this looks good and set in the 80s, our era. And it looks a lot of fun. It's like I I like slasher stuff,
Mhm.
so it's always good when you get a cool slasher, and I like when they do a good design on it, and this looks like a good design. So, um, but what was I gonna say? Um, but yeah, I feel like Netflix has been doing really good on this. And speaking of Ariana Greenblatt, she's also in this.
She's in this one? I was just getting
Yes.
ready to say I was just
So,
getting ready to say that.
yeah.
She is
I
literally
was
everywhere.
I was showing Katrina the trailers, and we were like, we just watched the Now You See Me Now You Don't trailer, and then I put on this one, and we were like, wait, was that her again? Like, that was so weird.
That's like whenever I watch trailers with my family, we're always like, "Damn, Jack Quaid's in this again. He's in another one." It's like Jack Quaid is in every damn thing.
Yes.
I'm not mad at it. I like both of these
No.
actors, so it's perfectly fine with me. I do love the look of the slasher in this one. I love the
Hmm.
axe. I love the like rain slicker poncho
Yeah.
thing. It being bright red.
Yeah.
This is right up my alley, and I love me a good prom horror film.
Yeah.
Any of those prom night two.
Yeah.
Um,
And it looks like it's gonna be gory like the other Fear Street
yeah, so
ones were. So
I hope that Netflix keeps a good streak with these because I
yeah.
have been loving them. The only thing I would have done differently, I wouldn't have put it out in May, but that is typically prom time, so I get it. I
Yeah.
understand it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
They're
I would
trying
have
to
waited until October, but that's okay. I'll take what I can get.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's good for them to like space out horror throughout the year. Like if it
Yeah.
was all like in October, we would have such a hard time trying to watch everything.
This is true.
So
This is true. Did you get to go to your prom, by the way? Are you like a
no,
prom person?
no. Number one, I was an awkward person who like
So
was a
was
low I was a
I.
super loner. And so I did no. And then I ended up graduating a year early anyway. So
I was the weird black girl that liked MTV and a Southern play. Are you kidding me? I was definitely the weirdo. I did go to junior prom. I didn't go to senior prom, but I
no.
got asked to go to a senior prom.
Aw.
So I went
But
to
you
two
but you
proms
said
at
no?
least. No, I went to both.
Oh, okay.
I went with
Gotcha.
the senior and then I went to my junior prom, but I did
Gotcha.
not go to
Gotcha.
my senior prom.
Gotcha.
Because I was already over it by then.
Yeah. Well, and that was the thing for me too. Like I hated school, so I wanted nothing to do with
Yes.
being in school. And so I wasn't participating in any of that crap. And
Yeah.
plus my last year was actually I went to school at okay, here's the thing. It's hard to explain. So we're gonna get into it now. So so my high school career was weird. So in ninth grade, I actually flunked ninth grade by a
Hmm.
half a credit. I had flunked two and a half
That's such
classes.
bullshit.
I
That's
had
such
flunked two and a
bullshit.
half classes. So, and so, but I couldn't make up that half a class in or one of the classes. I couldn't make it up in summer school. Back in the day, we had summer school that we could actually go to.
Hmm.
Nowadays, summer school is like you have to pay for it, and it's like a separate thing and everything like that.
Right.
It's weird. Um, but yeah, so I couldn't go to it because I was at the time I was living in Hawaii. And I was going to go visit my grandparents for the summer in New Mexico. And so I went and did that instead, came back, and then I was technically again in the ninth grade, but they gave me all 10th grade classes. So I was doing all my 10th grade classes, but in the ninth grade, which was weird. And then so I ended up, although I didn't end up liking my 10th grade teacher, English teacher, so I requested to be put into ninth grade English again, and then ended up with the same teacher I had the year before. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think he passed me just because he didn't want to see me a third time. So, because I didn't do any better that year than I did,
Oh my
I was,
God.
I've always been smart, but I hated school. I hated the whole process of school, especially
It's not
homework.
a good fit for everybody. Trust me.
No,
I already
yeah,
know.
I'm an individual learner.
Yeah, my
So,
mother had said years ago if she knew that she could have homeschooled me, she would have done that years ago. Like,
yeah,
now everybody's doing it, but especially in
yeah.
the 80s, she would have done it.
Pre-internet, I would have been
Yeah.
perfectly fine.
Me
Post-internet, I
too.
have no attention span at all. So
Agreed.
I've tried to do online college because I don't have a degree. But I've tried to do online college and I suck at it because I can't focus, I can't pay attention, I
Right.
get distracted real fucking easy.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, so yeah, so after 10th grade, after my second ninth grade year, I made up the English credit that I needed to make up for
Hmm.
10th grade. So I went and did a 10th grade English summer school class. Now, here's the thing. One, there wasn't a lot of actual homework. Most of the stuff was in class. Two, um, there was a paper I had to do, but I was able to do it on comic books. So I was like, oh, something in my wheelhouse. Yes, I could do this. And three, the teacher, her husband worked with my dad. And so I think we were friendly with each other. So I
Hmm.
think that helped also. So, um, so it was nice. So at least that was a better experience. And then I went into the 11th grade. I did 2 months of 11th grade in Hawaii, and then we moved. My dad was in the Navy. So then we moved duty stations, and we moved to California. In between movement, we took a month off of school and work, and went to visit family around the country because we always kind of did that like between duty stations.
Right.
Um, and so by the time I got back to California to do school, it was like December. And they were like, yeah, you were doing crappy beforehand, and you've now missed a month of school. So you need to go over to our continuation high school and um, catch up on your credits. And then you can rejoin at the beginning of the next semester. And so, continuation high school, for those who don't know, is a school where that kind of thing happens, or it's like a last chance school for kids who aren't doing well, and maybe have discipline problems or um, whatever, or it's for kids who have to work to help their families.
Right.
So then they only have to go to school half a day. There's no homework. You literally take no homework home. It's half a day, and you work independently. They give you the stuff. There's a teacher in the class. The teacher's supposed to help you as best they can with whatever they can, but you're basically work independently. It was the best. Because I didn't have a teacher yammering all day and I didn't have to take home homework. I didn't mind participating in class, but I hated doing homework after school because I'm like, I just spent so many hours at school and now I've got to do several hours more of homework. Like, what the
Right.
hell
Yeah,
is this
no.
crap? Why didn't we do this in class? So don't get me started. I hated school. So so then because I was in an environment that was really conducive to me learning and everything and getting work done, I actually excelled. I actually like got so much done that I was just like I could have gone back to the regular school and then finished out 11th grade as a regular 11th grader and then gone on to 12th grade the next year. But I was like, what if I just stay here and graduate early? If I can do all
Right.
my courses now and get it all done, then I can graduate a whole year early. And that's what I ended up doing. So I managed to flunk ninth grade, but still finish high school in only 3 years. So,
Bravo.
so I like to tell people that because it's like, what? Um, so yeah, but yeah, I finished it just after I turned 17. And then had no direction in life and have kind of
Do any of
meandered
us
since.
have direction in life,
So,
Robert?
which is why I'm a DoorDash driver now.
Yeah, I mean,
So I've never gotten a degree. I've tried to do college several times. I haven't even managed, like, I've gotten enough credits over time. I should have been able to just, if I'd done it right, I could at least have gotten an associate's degree.
yeah.
But I never did that even. So I don't, for
I
all
mean,
the
every
stuff
box
that happened.
doesn't fit everybody. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't, we all do this formula thing where we think we have to lather, rinse, repeat, go to school,
Exactly.
get this blah, 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 get a, we don't have to do any of that. We don't follow that. You make up your own rules.
Exactly. No, luckily, I met my wife, who is a much more driven person. She became a teacher. She makes the lion's share of the money. So it helped out with that, and she knows who I am as a person. And it's
Exactly.
taken some growth. Don't get me wrong, we've had arguments about it, but
I mean,
it's
we've been
taken
married.
some
Everybody,
growth.
we both have
Yeah,
like a lot of years on in both of our marriages. So yeah, it
yeah,
does take work, but we're still we still have
exactly,
successful marriages. So it's
exactly,
an ebb and flow. Trust me, my
exactly.
husband is the same way. He doesn't ever know what he wants to do, and then when he does do something, he's not sure if that's where he wants to be. And I'm the
I'm
first one to go find your path, honey, because I don't care.
Right.
I
And
just
I'm
don't
telling you
care.
right now, as like doing DoorDash, I'm actually enjoying it.
It's
Like
free, right?
I only work 4 days, like 4 hours a day. But I even on like I was working like one week I worked 6 days, because I had the time to do it, and it was bringing in. I make roughly about $60 a day on average. It's not a lot, but I'm only working 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
So, and my area is not super like competitive,
Hmm.
which is kind of nice too. It's like once I get out there and start working, I largely can pick up stuff pretty quickly. Um, so I'm usually pretty busy the entire 4 hours. And so it's a lot like um doing I used to work for DHL a long time ago. It actually I started out working for Airborne Express, which became DHL when DHL took over. But they basically, for anybody who doesn't know, DHL Airborne Express, they're basically exactly like UPS
Hmm.
and FedEx, their package delivery. And I love that job. I did that for 2.5 years, and that's always been one of my favorite jobs. And I actually, after like 6 months, I became the team leader for my area. And it was a lot of fun. I won't go into all the specifics, but this is already going on too long. Um, but this it kind of reminds me of that. I go in, I go grab something, I go make my delivery. And then most people it's a leave on the porch situation, and it's great. Even if it's not, and I got to hand stuff to people, that works too. I
Hmm.
just did a year of working at Pizza Hut, so I'm used to get handing people stuff anyway. So I don't have a problem with that. The unusual thing is now like leaving it on somebody's porch. Um, but I find that it's a job that I'm enjoying because I'm mostly in my car. Like part of the problem with Pizza Hut was that I was inside the store a lot. Like I would have to drive back to the store and then wait for orders. Because
Oh yeah, that's the worst. And
it
then you got
wasn't
to do
always
busy
busy
work
enough.
while you're waiting
Yeah,
and
and
not
then you're doing busy
no.
work, and then you're dealing with coworkers,
Yeah,
customers.
I used to hate that
Um,
whenever I used to
yeah,
do waitressing when it was slow. It was like we had to
yeah,
find busy work to do. Like you got to clean all the
yeah,
nope. That's not for
yeah,
me. Sorry. The
exactly,
tips are
exactly.
nice, but
You have to
no.
wear a uniform. I can wear
Yeah,
my own
no.
clothes. I do my own thing. I just, I can swing over, get something to
Super
eat
freeing.
myself. It's super freeing and it works so so well for me. I should have been doing this for years now.
How did we get
Um,
off of this? Because we talked about high school.
I don't, yeah, we were talking about prom queen. Yeah.
So you did you bring up
ADHD
prom queen?
brain right there.
That's
ADHD.
okay. We got. I'm gonna wrangle it right back.
Yes,
So
come
prom
on
queen
back.
was yours. This is
Yes,
my
yes.
last one, I think. Yeah,
Okay.
this is the only last one I have. So I didn't mean to cut you off, and I know
No,
that
no,
probably
you're
sounded
good. You're
rude.
good. Keep
Uh,
me on track. Keep me on track.
Wed- Wednesday season 2, they have
Yes.
a trailer, a Netflix, another Netflix thing, and it's showing you a lot of things going on. But the trailer for this is so cute because she's going through like a TSA type of thing, and they tell
Yeah.
her to take her weapon, take whatever metal out, and she's got like I don't know 30 weapons she
That girl
pulls
would have been
out.
arrested immediately. Come on.
And this time, in this day and age, oh yeah, well, even previously, she would have been,
Mm,
yes.
right.
And then there's even a cute scene where the TSA agent goes in her bag and pulls out a
Thing.
thing, and
Yeah.
they act like it's perfectly fine
Yeah.
for to have a dismembered hand in her purse, and I'm like, what is going on?
What in the
And
Barry Sonnenfeld is this?
it looks cute. I can honestly tell you this would have been my favorite. It's already a favorite show of mine, but if I had seen this show
Yeah.
when I was a teenager, I would have been head over heels about this because it just personifies everything about me that I like. I like dark stuff, I like gothic stuff, I like weird magical creatures. All of this tracks. I cannot wait to see this come back. However, they're splitting it up into two parts, which I am not a fan of.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
like when they start doing this shit.
Yeah. They did that with
I'm
the last season of Cobra Kai. They broke it up into three parts.
Yeah,
And it was
no,
like,
I'm still
dude,
gonna
come on.
watch it, but
Oh yeah.
why are
We're
we
still gonna
fucking
watch.
doing this?
Yeah.
Don't do this to
Yeah.
me.
No, I'm excited for this season. I enjoyed the first season. I'm definitely down for this next one. It looks like they're at least from the trailer, it looks like they might be incorporating the rest of the family a little bit more as well.
Yes, it looks like
So
Pugsley may be coming to school with her this
yeah,
time, I
maybe.
hope. But yeah, but that was my only other one. It looks like a lot of fun, just like the first season. I know a
Yeah.
lot of people, myself included, had some problems with the way that the black people were portrayed in this.
Yeah.
So he might, I hope he fixed the issues with that, but
Fingers crossed.
we'll see. We
Yeah.
will see. I'm still gonna watch it, but I wasn't a fan of it. That's all I'm
Yeah.
gonna say. Of
Yeah.
the treatment, not the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that was it. That was my last little blurb.
All right. Well, I have one more thing and then we'll be done. There was a new trailer for the upcoming Max TV series Duster that came out this week also. I'm excited for this one. It's a J.J. Abrams co-created show with Josh Holloway as one of the stars. Keith David is also in it. It looks like a lot of fun. It's set in the 70s, about a uh, Josh Holloway being recruited to take down this Southwest crime king, Keith David's character. Um, and it just looks a lot of this action oriented J.J. Abrams stuff. I'm sure there's going to be some kind of weird twist into it and everything like that. I hope there's some kind of weird, pseudo sci-fi thing going on because that's
That
what he
would
does
be
best.
nice.
Yeah. So I mean,
It does look cute though. I
yeah,
I mean it looks like it's gonna be a lot of fun, a lot of action, definitely a
yeah,
lot of cool vintage cars and vintage
yeah,
looks in this one. So I don't know if you're a gearhead, but I'm excited to see the car chases.
yeah.
That's
I
all I'm
wouldn't
gonna say.
say like that's the thing. Like I wouldn't say I'm a gearhead necessarily, but I do like cool cars.
Yeah.
Um, it's weird because I used to actually watch that show like Orange County Choppers.
Hmm.
And I didn't care about all the interpersonal crap. I was just like, show me the fucking bike, man. Like I want to see the cool bike you guys are making.
You
I
want to
like
see it
that
after it's
aspect of it.
done. We don't want to
I
hear
like
them
the
yelling at each
well, and
other and
I like the whole getting it made aspect of it too. But like, yeah, all
right.
them yelling at each other, the whole thing and everything was just annoying. That's probably why I ducked out before the end of the series even happened. But I did have a
So I'm
lot of fun with
assuming
it.
if this is a J.J. Abrams, so we're gonna get Greg Grunberg, right? I mean, he's
Oh
got to
yeah,
be in
no,
there somewhere.
he's definitely in the cast. I saw that
Okay.
already. Yeah, of course he's got to have Greg Grunberg in there every time. It doesn't
I
matter what
always
show
make
it
the joke
is.
that he must have like some serious dirt on him, but I think they're just really close. They're just,
I think,
nice
yeah, they're
friends.
just really good friends. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he likes to put them in everything, which is great,
I would do it too. If I was
right?
making movies and stuff, I'd put all of my friends in
No,
everything, even if it was just
I'm
walking
sorry,
past
but
the
like
screen.
every single one of my favorite directors, like pretty much, not all of them, but I'm pretty sure most of them use a lot of the same people because they're
Yeah.
all really good friends. Tarantino, Kevin Smith, just everybody like tends to reuse the same kind of people over and over again
Yeah, I
because
would totally 100% do
yeah,
that.
me too. Like those are the people I know I could trust. Mike Flanagan, they're the people I know I can trust that are going to turn in a really good performance and that I can rely on. Like, why
Mhm.
wouldn't you use them, especially if they're adaptable and they can change characters? And if you get somebody who's not that great, of course you're not going to use them again. But it's just yeah, no, I love that. And J.J. Abrams using people over again, Josh Holloway, Greg Grunberg, it's great. I'm
Yeah,
down
and
for
Greg
it.
Grunberg is always good, and like nobody
Yeah.
ever gives him a chance. So I'm totally glad to see him in this. This will be a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
absolutely. Cool, cool. All right. Well, that's all I have. But before we move on to the rest of the show, why don't you let everyone know what's going on your show this week?
So I am still doing my recaps of The Last of Us on Friday, but on Mondays I am also doing minisodes, and they're kind of tying in with The Last of Us, the themes that I'm doing these minisodes. So the one this week will be about cults because we are being
Mm,
introduced to a cult on
yes, we
The
are.
Last of Us, and I won't get into any more of that, but it'll be definitely a minisode, like 15, 20 minutes tops, y'all. That I'm killing myself doing 2 episodes a week, but that's okay. I'm
Can you
actually
imagine? I
enjoying
used
it.
to do this every week for a
Yeah,
good,
no, I don't
at
know how
least
you
good
do it.
half a year. No, I don't know
Nah.
how I did it either because like that's why I quit doing it. So,
Yeah, that's why I'm doing minisodes because I can't do
oh yeah,
anything
no.
longer than that. But yeah, but that's what I've got. Two times a week you get to hear me, and three actually when you drop yours.
All
So
right.
that's a lot of Donna.
That is a lot of Donna.
How do y'all put up with that?
I think it's because we all love that much Donna. Uh,
Oh,
all right. Well, I appreciate you coming on again. And we'll be talking very soon about Thunderbolts in just a couple of weeks. But everybody stay tuned for the rest of the episode. I'll be talking to Al Davidson about Last Night in Soho. On today's episode, we've made it to the final stop in my series of Edgar Wright episodes with Last Night in Soho. Joining me for this is returning guest Al Davidson. Al is a multi award nominated indie author, spooky person, and cat mom. She specializes in cozy stories and horrifying horror romance. When they're not writing, they're usually watching cheesy ghost hunting shows and hanging out with their cat, Jukebox. Welcome back to the show, Al.
Hi, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you back on. I can't remember. I think I looked back and it was the It Follows and Smile episode that we did together
Yes.
before. So yeah, it's good to get you on for another episode. This one talking about Last Night in Soho, Edgar Wright's most recent movie that he's put out. And one of his I don't know, like it's definitely a favorite of mine. I know going into this we talked about this beforehand. You hadn't seen this before, but you were
No,
excited to check it out.
yeah, it was one of those like I remembered seeing it, and I think it was still at that point that it was like COVID weirdness, and I wasn't going to the theater, and then things just started like
Yeah.
passing me by, and then I'm like deleted it from my brain. And so, but the thing is like I'm not a big Doctor Who fan, but I was a Doctor Who fan during the Matt Smith era, and I just love seeing him in bad guy roles like this. And so like
Yeah.
the moment I saw, I was like, oh, you're horrible in this. I'm like, yes, this is the thing. With Anya Taylor Joy. I'm like, this is perfect. This is a very me coded movie.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't like that was the funny thing. Like I watched like I'm gonna go into a Doctor Who tangent here. I've never been a big Doctor Who person, but I did watch a bit of it for a little while when it was on Netflix. Like this was years ago. And people had been talking about it for so long. And I'd known people throughout my childhood who had watched like the older episodes. I think when they were coming on like PBS or something.
Yeah.
And so they knew some of the like the 80s era doctors and stuff. And so then cut forward, a lot of people have been talking about it. I think it was around the Matt Smith era that I decided, okay, I'm gonna try and start watching these from nine up. And so I watched the Christopher Eccleston stuff. I watched the all of the David Tennant stuff, and I got about halfway through the Matt Smith stuff before it got dumped away from Netflix and then onto something
Yep.
that I didn't have. And so I was just like, well, I guess that's it for now. And I've just never gone back to it. But I think it's an interesting show. It's not exactly my cup of tea, but it was interesting for what it was. So, but David Tennant will always be my favorite, number 10. So,
I I was at a local Comic Con last month, and he was the big guest. And apparently, it was the biggest Friday they'd ever had because he was holding his panel that night,
oh
and it
wow,
was mass chaos because he's never been to a Kansas City con where I'm at, and so it was one of
yeah.
those that he just like everyone was like losing their minds about it, and I was like, I wish I could like go and see because it sounds like such a great time. And I was stuck in my booth, but apparently he just like it was an absolute blast. He just seems like such a super nice guy. But it's so funny because like whenever I think of David Tennant, like my first thing is I loved him in Broadchurch, like I because he was such a grump and such like a not typical like I like the when the actors who are known for doing like funny lighthearted stuff then go do something really dark.
Oh yeah, no, I love that too.
And so I was like, oh, like this is a different side of you, and you had your actual accent. I was like, what is this?
Yeah, no, that and his turn on Jessica Jones was really
Yeah,
good. So that and what was the other thing? Good Omens was
yeah,
he
he's
was
great in Good
great in
Omens.
that too. But yeah, this getting back to last night in Soho. So yeah, you finally got to watch it. What was your overall thoughts about it? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you what exactly
I,
did you feel about it?
I liked it. I love how stylistic it is because it has again it's got that classic, Edgar Wright stylization with the musics and the tempos and
Right.
things like that. I love the big dance scene where it's switching between the two leads. I do wish that it would have gone into the horror a bit more. I felt like it was always just like teetering on the edge of like something really intense, then kind of like pulling back. But I know also, he's more horror comedy with things, so it's probably not his typical styles. I kept like sitting around. I was like, I just want just a little bit more, just a little bit more. But
Right.
I love the styles. I love the clothes. Like the again, Anya Taylor Joy is a perfect human being and can do no wrong. And I just like her in this kind of sassy role. And it was a very fun. It was a fun movie. I definitely want to sit down and watch it again now that I know what's going on and see if I can like catch things that I missed. And
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I know there's definitely some stuff that was peppered throughout little teases that could hint as to what the ending was, and we'll get
yeah,
to that. But yeah, definitely, and definitely before we get to it, I want to preface this by anybody who hasn't seen this movie, we're going to spoil it. And so definitely, if you haven't seen it, go watch it first, then come back and listen to us. But yeah, it's definitely one of those ones. And I think this is only my second, maybe third time watching it fully. I saw it in the theater. I believe this is the only Edgar Wright movie I've ever seen in the theater. Like every other one of them, I always missed out on. Like my movie going was, for like most of his career has been where I didn't really used to go to the movies as much as I would have wanted to go see
mm,
stuff like this, because we I had kids and uh, lack of funds and such, less time. So now I have a little bit more time. My kids are adults, and now I can go to the movies a little bit more often. And actually, end up going with my daughter all the time. She's my movie buddy, and so we go all the time to go see stuff. And we actually went together to see Last Night in Soho, and we were both blown away by it. She's like a huge fan of it. So um, but yeah, no, I really enjoyed watching it the first time, and even the second watch, really loved it. I'm with you. I'm a huge Anya Taylor-Joy fan. Um, like I love seeing her and everything. I love
Hmm.
Furiosa. I know everybody else isn't isn't as big a fan of it as I am, but I love Furiosa. I think she does great in that. But I also think, Thomas and Mackenzie is doing really good in this movie.
Yeah.
Like for somebody who's as like kind of newish, like she hasn't been in a lot of movies, and she doesn't have as long of a career, um, and she hasn't been in like she's been in a couple of higher profile things. She was in like M. Night Shyamalan's movie Old, but yeah,
Oh,
it's just
old.
what.
I said, oh, old, that movie.
I like that one. I like most of
Anyway.
his movies, honestly. Um, there, and I'll be discussing that in a couple of months. Actually, I'm doing a M. Night Shyamalan series, so
Oh no.
that one's definitely on it. But yeah, so I mean, she was really good in Old. She was really good in this one. I feel like she held her own really well, especially
Yeah.
because it's her story. It's like, I'd say she's on the screen like a good 90% of the time. Like it's definitely she's carrying the movie
Yes.
fully on her back, and she does a really good job. It was interesting when checking out kind of the background of the movie and everything, that Anya Taylor-Joy had actually been cast originally in the Ellie role.
Oh,
But
interesting.
yeah, but Edgar Wright went, she's already played these kind of roles in like Split and The Witch and stuff, and wanted her to, instead of being like, the good girl, he wanted to change her into the bad girl. And in fact, this is the movie that George Miller saw and then made him want to cast her as Furiosa.
That's awesome.
So
Because
yeah.
this was before the menu too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Because she plays a little bit more of a sassy,
Yeah.
hold her own kind of character in the menu too. So as you definitely get to see the switch from the
Yeah.
more innocent younger characters to what she's doing now, which is great. I love the menu. Like
Yeah.
you could put her in anything and I'll probably watch it.
Oh yeah, no, same. Like there's definitely a few movies of hers I haven't seen, and probably a couple that I probably won't see. Like I have no interest in Emma, but I'm sure she does wonderful in that as well.
Emma is such a delightfully funny movie. I had no
Yeah.
idea what I was getting into when I watched it, and I had tears in my eyes. I was laughing so hard. It's so funny.
That's funny. All right, maybe
I
I'll check
forget
it
that
out.
she's in. I forget
Yeah.
that she's in it because it was one of those like, again 5 years ago when that movie came out, but it was a delight. We watched it in the
Yeah.
home theater, and she was just insane in that role. It's very funny movies, but
Yeah.
yeah, I forget that she forget that she's in that.
But she was also in that X-Men franchise movie, The New Mutants, and
Yeah.
like that's not a great movie, but like she is excellent in it, and she elevates it by her presence being in it. So, and she plays one of the better characters in there as well. So, but yeah, um, yeah, this is just a really interesting, fascinating movie. I love the character of Ellie, and she's this girl who wants to be a fashion designer. She gets a chance to go to a London school, and she's a little country girl, so she's not used to dealing with the city and people who are like, the other classmates who are kind of like, catty towards her. Um, and it's just I love that, fish out of water thing, but it's also
Hmm.
like this, it's I love what I like to call like dark Hollywood, or dark, um um uh what is it called, dark show business stories, especially if they're
Yeah.
set in Hollywood. But this one kind of fills in that kind of same thing, and she she eventually moves into this, because she doesn't want to live with her, like, roommate that she's rooming with at the college, and decides to move into a little apartment. And but when she's in there, she already has a history of seeing her mom, um, like images of her mom in the mirror. But then she starts to see things when she falls asleep and believes she's going back to the past into the 1960s. Now she's obsessed with the 60s. And so that has like, I think there's a lot of influence. There's definitely something going on in that room, but there's a lot of it that's pulling from her own mind as well. And I think it's an interesting concept. It's not really explored in the movie as much. It's just kind of hinted at that just that she does definitely, it's like a combination of having a mental health problem, but also actually seeing these things.
Yep.
So it's kind of a weird combination of those, but it's not explored in any way. And that to me was a little bit of a frustration, because
Yeah.
her mom also had um, mental health problems that made her kill herself. And so that affects her, and and kind of like she's worried about that for herself. Her grandmother's always calling her and always making sure she's okay, and she's worried about her and doesn't want her to have the same issues that her mom had. And so because I can see from an outside point of view that it just seems like she's seeing things, but she actually is seeing things. So um so what did you think of that aspect?
Yeah, I like it. I'm a very much a fan of the weird things are happening in a kind of like isolated setting, the untraditional haunted house kind
Yeah.
of stuff. And so I love, I was watching someone like do like deep dives on this last night because that's my thing. Is like I'll watch the movie and I'll watch what other people say about the movie. And someone was
Yeah.
like, it's leaning into the stone tape theory, which is that places and objects hold memories, and so it's holding on to the traumatic things. And so
Hmm.
it's one of those of like it would be cool to explore of like, is she seeing what's actually there, or is it just like all of the energy that's in the building? And so it's kind of one of those that I do wish it had been explored a little bit more, because
Yeah.
it was very flashy and it was very pretty, but there was like so much that we're like, oh well, what does that mean and why is she seeing this? And if it's one of those of like, well, they're following her out into other places, and is that actually happening, or is she just tired because she's time traveling every time she goes to
Right.
bed?
Yeah.
And so it
Yeah,
was
and
all
that's the frustration too. It almost has an unreliable narrator
yeah.
quality to it. Because like I said, she's the focus like through 90% of this movie. There's rarely a moment where she's not on screen.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's completely focused on her. So it's like, you know, you never get a sense that, and I almost like I'm trying to think of it. I'm almost sure that either it's visions she's directly seeing, or it's us seeing her, and that's the only time we see anything else that's not her. um Occasionally we'll like pan over to somebody else, but she's always still there in the room. And so I definitely have that, like, got that unreliable narrator sense throughout everything, that
Yeah.
there was something going on like that, but like what was it exactly? And then yeah, no, exactly. I wanted to know more about what was going on. Don't get me wrong. I love the movie for what it is, and it's fine the way it is. But again, if they had more time to do it, it would have been nice to explore that kind of thing. They don't have to over explain it or anything like that, but it would have been nice to get a little bit more knowledge on it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's especially because Ellie's such an interesting and really
Yes.
likable protagonist that it's kind of like, well, I want to know more about like, is this a lifelong thing? Is this now that after her mom died, is she having some sort of like traumatic response to that? Like it's one of those that I was like, I love her so much that I want more of the focus on
Hmm.
her and how it develops and why why things are happening. But it's one of those that even when it's focused on Sandy, like you can see Ellie like
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
reflections that she's always there in
Yeah.
every shot almost. And it's just like,
Yeah.
is this just a fever dream? Is she
Yeah.
who knows what's going on? But yeah, it's one of those. Again, I think the horror, if it had like an extra 10% more screen time to develop, it really could have been an
Yeah.
excellent horror movie and less of like a psychological giallo type of film, which I
Yeah.
love giallo films, but it does very much have that like it's gonna be flashy deaths and not deaths that make sense.
Yeah. Well, and I want to get into that because that was something that I noticed upon my very first watch of this is this movie has huge amounts of giallo vibes.
Hmm.
Like he was definitely pulling from a lot of that era of film and the coloring of everything that going back to that whole 60s vibe and everything. Um and I know he's a big fan of Suspiria, and that was the movie that I most connected with it
Hmm.
upon that first watch. I literally told my daughter, I was like, this would make a great double feature with Suspiria.
Yeah.
Because it's like really that girl out of water going to school, weird shit starts happening, and then this is ghosts as opposed to witches, but similar themes, similar story bits here and there. Not in any way that I would say that it was copying anything because it wasn't at all.
No.
It tells its own unique story, but I just definitely got that vibe, and I think it would make a really great double feature with the original Suspiria,
Yeah.
um, just because of all of that. And I know, like, one, I know he's a big fan of that, and two, that just like I said, I know he pulled from different bits and pieces. He didn't say that this movie specifically was inspired by Suspiria. I think he mentioned a couple other ones, like Repulsion and something else I can't remember at the moment. But definitely he's known to be a big fan of Suspiria, so I think that had a lot to do with it. Um, he co-wrote this with a woman. Oh, what was her name? I'm so bad at this. I never have notes.
Christy Wilson Cairns.
There you go, Christy Wilson Cairns. She also did the movie 1917 with Sam Mendes. And she brought a lot of her own experiences as a woman to the script, which I think is really great of him to sit there and go, you know what, I don't have this experience. This is the broad story strokes I want. What would make this better?
Yeah,
Um,
because he's definitely not known for having well-rounded female characters in his
yes,
other
yes,
movies.
yes,
Like
indeed.
even Baby Driver is like she's the waitress. Does
Yeah,
she have a name? No, she's just the waitress.
her
she's
name's
she's cute
Deborah.
and she's a motivator. I don't even know, but it's nice to have, especially
Yeah,
since it is so female focused,
yeah,
to
yeah,
have that
absolutely.
extra, you know,
Yeah,
aspect and viewpoint on it.
yeah. No, I think that it definitely helped. I think that was something that, because previous to that, all of his movies had been co-written. All three of the Cornetto trilogy movies he co-wrote with Simon Pegg. He
Hmm.
co-wrote Scott Pilgrim with Michael Bacall. And while he did write Baby Driver by himself, he also, when he decided to set it in Atlanta, he actually got local writers to help localize it for him. And so that way there were little things in the script that would make people who knew about Atlanta go, oh, okay, yeah, this makes sense. This is, I recognize that place,
Yep.
And so I think that's really good about him. What's great with him is that, he does have co-writers. He does, bring in that, and especially with this movie, it definitely needed a woman's touch in that way because that
Hmm.
does help bring a woman's perspective to these characters, that he's just not going to have. He's not going to understand what it's like to be in the back of a cab where the cab driver is being skeezy, um,
Right.
which was an uncomfortable moment for sure.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so it's just like, yeah, no. Um, but like that was a lot of that, like she's in a new area, and she's in London, and she's never experienced what that's like to be in a city and with all the people and everything that's going on, and meanwhile she's like drowning in this like new visions that she's having, that start out great at first and then turn nightmarish like really quickly. um and I
Yeah.
just I don't know. I really enjoyed the flashbacks. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Like I say, and it's also one of those that she's in a new city that she's dreamed about and is
Yes.
quickly disillusioned because it does not take very long for it
No.
to
Yeah.
happen, which is one of those things that I think, especially when you're, in your teens and you're like, oh, I'm gonna move out to it's the Pearl thing. It's I'm gonna move out to LA and become a star, and then you
Yep.
spend 15 years, as a waitress, and you think you're gonna do it, and it's just this big grand thing, and then you get there and you realize, oh no, which
Yeah.
especially for even something like London, it's you have these big dreams and you plans and you make it and things are going good, and then day one it's like, oh no, this is not what I
Yeah.
wanted to, but I can't tell anybody because I don't want to seem like a failure. And so it very much feels it's like kind of an interesting coming of age story
Mm-hmm.
in a way too, that's kind of thrown into a horror film, which I really love because I feel like that's something that is so like abundant in abilities to make stories for, and it just never is really touched on like this. But now you're seeing more of it again with the like the disillusionment of Hollywood thing with like the Pearl and the X trilogy, and you have Last Night in
Mm-hmm.
Soho, and it's a really kind of a fun like almost subgenre of coming of
Right.
age horror that I'm like super into.
Well, it's interesting too because the idea for this came from Edgar Wright's own love of the 1960s. His parents were, grew up during that time period, and he was fascinated by their stories and the music and everything else. And so he wanted to, but like during the course of all this, when thinking about all this, he realized that the when the film itself, when making the film, he decided to go in this direction of the film is about romanticizing the past and why it's wrong to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a people are overly nostalgic for the past. We see it a lot in a lot of what's going on in our own country and in the world today about people wanting to go back to an era where things were better.
Yep.
The problem is things weren't better. They may have been better for certain people, but they weren't better for everybody, and that's dangerous.
Yep.
And so, um, and I think that's what's great about this movie is he's pointing out, look, this was not a great time for women, like you know, in the 60s, trying to go and make it. And he even said that there were British films in the 60s that were kind of about the darker side of show business and Soho specifically. And he said there's a lot of movies where it seems that the genre is girl comes to London to make it big and is roundly punished for her efforts.
Yep.
And so, it's definitely we're definitely kind of seeing it, like you said, even with this movie with Pearl, like slash Maxine, and all that. That it's like, you try to take these girls, they want to become stars, and then they get punished. It's kind of the reality of the
Yep.
situation, but it is a weird little subgenre of movies that we're seeing again. And it's interesting to see because even this and Maxine, when you think about it, they kind of flip it a little bit and take on that dark way of punishing these girls and the women, these women coming back to you know right the wrongs in a
Yep.
way. And so I like that they're kind of like taking that story, that old worn story, and making something new with it and changing it and making it different and unique in its own way. So
Yeah. And I love that it's focused on fashion too, because that's been a big
yes,
thing is the whole idolizing and obsessing over the fashion and designs of the past. And there's a lot of I can't find the exact quote I was looking for, but there's quotes about it's okay to love the fashion but not the time. And I think
yeah,
that's it's a very big topic of conversation, especially like in the last like couple of years. And I think that using it as like he could have picked anything. He's like, oh, I'm going to go to London to become a star or a singer, but no, I'm going to go there to do fashion because I'm obsessed with the fashion of this time. Is such a kind of it's a refreshing angle to
hmm
take on. the situation, but then being able to weave in the history side of it in the way that he did and have it still reflect how she's looking at things in the present is super
Right.
cool. That was kind of my one gripe with like the end of it though, is like, oh, you would think that she would kind of learn to let go and move on to something else. But again, it's that same thing of like she's taking the inspiration from the era of fashion that she loves and
Right.
modernizing it and not obsessing over the time itself, which
Not
I, you
trying to
know,
recreate the time period itself, but taking that as inspiration. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that. Yeah, because I can see where that would be like, well, and I heard too, because like at the end, everything, gets settled, and at the end she has her little fashion show, and I think it's a student fashion show. They're all getting to display
Mm-hmm.
their designs and stuff. But when she goes back there, you see that moment where her and Jocasta just kind of like look at each other. And Jocasta was her former roommate, and at one point she almost stabs her in the face with a
Yes.
pair of scissors, because she's seen visions, and that's but so they, uh, now don't get me wrong, I'm actually surprised she even made it through with all that going on, that they even
Right.
let her still stay in the school. But happy ending's a happy ending, so I'll take it. um there's a lot of movies where things end in a weird way that I'm just like, yeah, like if you go back to watch Ready or Not, and you see her
Right.
sitting on the steps, she's got blood all over her, the house is in flames, and she's like the lone person. How are you going to explain that? Like, you can't explain that all of a sudden the whole family just exploded.
Yeah, no.
Spoilers for Ready or Not, by the way. You're getting arrested, for sure. And there's no way she can talk her way out of that. Like, how do you
No.
talk your way out of that? So, but hey, sequel's coming up, so we'll see what happened. Um, but yeah, that at that moment, there's the moment where her and Jocasta, kind of just nod at each other. Apparently the original scene was that they hugged. And the people who saw that cut were like, that doesn't seem right. I don't think they'd be
No.
friends after everything. They might be begrudgingly, classmates, but that's going to be about it. So,
Yeah. Yeah, no.
um,
There would be no hugging.
yeah,
As as a female bodied person who has been in
yeah,
situations with him, like there would be no hugging. There's like the nod is a
yeah. The nod was a lot to begin with. I was like actually surprised at that. I was like, okay, come on. I would have thought Jocasta'd be glowering at her and like, be like, nah, 50 feet. Remember 50 feet. There's
right.
a restraining order against you. um, but yeah, no, but it's so when she like going back to it, she's obsessed with the 60s. She's listening to the music of the 60s. She's obsessed with the fashions. She moves into this little apartment, run by old woman, I can't remember her name, Mrs. Collins, played by Dame Diana Rigg, from Everybody Should Know Her. She's a former Bond girl. She was on the old British show The Avengers, not related to the
Mhm.
Marvel property at all. um and so uh but what was I saying? So she moves into this apartment because she can't stand being around her roommate anymore, who's just driving her nuts.
After like
And
a day.
yeah, after
Pretty
like
much.
literally one day. And I don't blame her. Like this
No.
woman, this girl is just like, nah, like can't stand to have any attention not on her is the main thing. Like, and just like completely, and she's just catty as all hell. She's bad because later on in the Halloween party that they're having, her and her friends are all dressed up like members of the movie The Craft, and she's dressed as Nancy. So
Yep.
that tells you all you need to know about this girl. So I did think that was a very good costuming choice there for them. Um, but yeah, so she moves into this apartment, and it's great. She's got this place to herself. She's got, she's living this life. And then suddenly she starts having these dreams of like herself being back in the 60s. And while it's her, it's also like a mirror to a woman who you see is played by Anya Taylor-Joy, a woman named Sandy, who's trying to become a singer and a dancer at this really nice club. But and it starts at like they have all these mirror images that they do, and a lot of that was done practically. They didn't do a lot of it
Hmm.
digitally. They actually got the Phelps twins, the guys that played the Weasley twins, um, in the Harry Potter movies. They brought them in to play, the same guy in the mirror um, when they first go in there. And there's this dance sequence with Matt Smith
So
that they
good.
do that is you can tell like it's so like if you're paying attention, you kind of know movie trickery. You can kind of tell that they're kind of dancing in and out of it. But there's a special feature also, and it shows you like a far away camera version of it, and you can see just how much they had to kind of like bounce around and like be ready to jump in at that moment's notice. And so it's like the choreography of it was like insane. Um, so it's like really cool how they did that and how they did all the camera tricks and stuff like that. There's a moment where she's talking to Matt Smith's character Jack, and he's clearly in the mirror, but uh, Ellie's on one side and Sandy's on the other. But they've got it, and it was one of those things where I didn't notice it the first time, but because I guess I was paying more attention this time. I saw that it was like half a mirror. It was like basically a window like there, but they
Hmm.
put like half a mirror there instead of just like an open thing. And so where you see Ellie and Sandy just not being reflected against it, there's that half a mirror, and you can kind of see the cut right there. So
Yeah.
it's one of those little weird things. I think it's so weird when people are like, oh, well, this is a goof because you can see it. I'm just like, okay, just let it go. It's movie magic, people. It's like you're gonna see the seams sometimes. Things are gonna they can't make it 100% effective at all times. So
Yeah.
I
And
like it.
rather they try practically
Yes.
in every way that they can instead of putting in a bunch of weird like CGI and cuts and
Yeah.
stunt doubles that don't look like them and you know.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that because that would just it's always so weird when you get like the stunt doubles and you can kind of tell when the stunt double is like so not the person.
Yeah.
And it's like I think they've gotten better with that because it used to be like sometimes the height would be off or the the they wouldn't turn fast enough so you could kind of see their face or whatever. But it's just like movie making has gotten so much better, and they try to actually get stunt doubles that look a lot like the actor or actress to like make that work better. So but yeah, no, I thought that all of that like little the doubling thing was done really well, and I love that they
Yeah.
were able to do it all practically.
Yeah.
um
Well, and even like little shots of like where Sandy and Jack are like in the car and you can still see Ellie in the window behind Sandy inside of the car. Like they're just really cool, subtle
yeah,
shots to kind of sit down and help you remember that the focus is on Ellie, even when
yes,
she's not center stage. And it's just a lot of really cool
yeah,
camera tricks and
yeah.
lighting play and things like that.
Yeah. Well, and I think what it's nice about that is because it keeps it focused on Ellie, and it shows that, she is like what she's doing, she's just seeing this. She's seeing this life being played out. And that, in some ways she's kind of inhabiting it. But, at the same time, she is she's just an observer. She's not
Yeah.
really getting to interact. It feels like she is, but for the most part, it's something that happened to somebody else, and she's getting to have snippets of it. Um, but it starts to affect her at first in a positive way. She starts to model herself after Sandy. She gets her hair dyed blonde. Um, she tries to go get some fashions from the 60s so she can look a lot like her. And once she becomes blonde, like it's at there's moments there where it was kind of hard to tell the two of them apart.
Yeah.
Like when they would do the quick cuts and stuff, I was just like, oh wow, okay, which one is this right now? I was actually surprised at how well their faces like synced up. And because I always see Anya Taylor-Joy as this like very uniquely looking person. Um,
Yes.
and so to see somebody kind of matching her in that was like, oh, okay, So so I did like that they actually tried to, you know, get that. Fun fact, by the way, Anya Taylor-Joy played a character named Thomason in The Witch. so
Yes.
so
Which I think is just so it's that's adorable. That's just kind of one of those like weird
yeah,
little coincidences. It's like, oh, that's cute.
yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I really, really enjoy this man. I love what it's doing with this point of it. They're trying to, she's embracing the 60s. She's kind of like, and this is that part where, he's telling like, or that Edgar Wright was saying, she's romanticizing these 60s because this is just like, she was told these stories by her mom and her grandmother, and um, all of that just kind of made her, um, it was like she was trying to connect to this era in a way. I think, you know, in part because, obviously she loves that era, but also because it was like something with her mom, and she wanted to bring back a part of her mom in some way.
Yeah.
I think that was a big part of it. I did think it was interesting too that once she left her home and she arrived in London, she stopped seeing her mom in the mirror,
Hmm.
and didn't see her again until all of this got settled. So I think that's an interesting thing that, you know, um, by leaving, home, she also left her mom in a way.
Yeah.
It was very indicative of that, leaving the nest and, trying to go your own way, thing. So I thought that was an interesting bit of that, but the being infected by this, like this other, um, presence, I guess, you would say, being in that room. Um,
Yeah. And can we talk about John? He was so nice. He did everything
yes.
he could for her. Like I feel like that was another thing is like I wish he had gotten a little bit more development because he was such an interesting and nice character and like did everything he could to help her and she was
Yeah.
like running around trying to stab someone with scissors and he's like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Whatever.
yeah. He was, for what all was going on. He was a very understanding person. And and I mean, obviously, he liked her from the start.
Yeah.
He felt a kinship with her in a way, and I'm glad the relationship progressed for them. That they did come together and find comfort with each other and everything. And so at least it wasn't one of those, like, at first she was like, oh no, this is just another dude trying to be like gross at me and everything like that.
Yeah.
um and he made up for it, and because at first he drank her soda and brought back another soda and was just always there for her when nobody else was. And
Yeah.
and again, here's the thing. It's a fine line between romantic and creepy.
Yes.
And so I mean, because you can view that as something else, like view that from a different perspective and see everything he did as creepy as well.
Yeah.
But paying a little too much attention to her, like always being around and being in her business and everything. But thankfully it was actually, you know, and even then, sometimes the people who seem like they're being creepy are trying to just be helpful or whatever. you know 9 times out of 10, I'm gonna say they're being creepy.
Yeah.
And so I'm not gonna deny that. But at least in this instance, it was definitely more the helpful version, and she was at least open to it. So
Yeah. Well, and it also helps fill out the modern time better instead of it just being just her and like a bunch of like nameless classmates. At least she had like someone else to kind of like help ground those sides. I
yes,
think with you when you have how flashy and pretty and interesting everything is in the past, it could be very easy for the stuff in the current time to get kind of lost. And so having characters like
right,
Mrs. Collins and Jocasta and John and the creepy old guy who keeps showing up at the bar, the octopus man,
right,
as they
yeah,
called him, helped it to where it felt more
Well, the lady who owns the
fleshed
bar and
out.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And I love that. Like everybody like that Ellie met who wasn't creepy or a jerk, like really fell in love with her. Like even the
yeah,
lady who owned the bar was just like, look, we love you. Like, she was like, you fit really well here. And I just love that like, there was nobody who was just like when they were honest to it. I mean, even when you look at, Octopus Man and stuff like that, he came off as creepy and stuff like that. But, there was a he was trying to protect her in a way as well. It just came off as weird.
yeah,
Which I mean, understandably, he was being weird about it. Um,
yeah. He
but
had that old weird man energy that they just kind of like they want to be helpful, but they don't quite know how to do it
yeah.
without being just
Well,
like
but
in
when
your
you
face.
discover who he is too, you kind of then understand.
Yeah,
And it's a great performance by Terrence Stamp. So far it's
yeah.
his last performance that he did as well. He hasn't done any work since then that I looked up. I didn't see that he'd done anything since then, at least on Wikipedia. I didn't check IMDb. But he just, you know, Terrence Stamp is a great actor.
Yeah.
And he's just, yeah, Last Night in Soho is his last work so far.
Yep.
Um, yeah. So I'm, he's 86 now. So I mean, I'm sure he's, it didn't say anything about him officially retiring, but I'm sure he's pretty much retired at this point. Um, you know, but Yeah, no, that's what was really great about the movie. It's so many good, like, balancing that, like the now versus the 60s. And I mean, she
Hmm.
really did not want to, like, she kept going back to the 60s, but she was trying not to. She didn't even want to go back to her room,
Yep.
because things started going bad in those visions, as she was seeing Sandy going down this road of prostitution, because her boyfriend slash manager, Jack, um, who promised to get her into the clubs as a singer dancer, said, "Well, this is how you got to do it. You got to do it by sleeping around with, sleeping with men." And basically, he effectively became her pimp.
Yep.
Um, and it's just like, again, that's the cautionary tale of one. Women. I don't think that like women shouldn't go to um go find their like passion or whatever, go to Hollywood or go to these places to, find their fame or whatever, if that's something they want to do. But definitely, I think it's a cautionary tale about doing it the way it's been done.
Yep.
And I think that, definitely try to figure out different ways to do it so that you're not subjected to that. Because you hear the horror stories, like you said earlier, about girls that get on the bus and get to Hollywood and then they do whatever they have to do. Most times it's regular stuff like having to wait tables and stuff like that and
Yep.
like barely scrape by while doing like 30 auditions. And it's a lot of people don't make it. Like that's
Yep.
that's the bad thing. A lot of people move out to Hollywood, never make it, maybe do a couple of bit roles and then end up going back home.
Yeah.
But
Well, and it's
some
even the same
fall
of
through the
like
cracks.
doing Broadway stuff or,
Yes, yeah.
anything else like up in New York. And it's just the cautionary tale is if a man with a very long face with a British accent comes to tell you he can make you a star, don't listen to him because
Right,
he's probably lying. If he
right.
looks like Doctor Who, he's probably lying.
Yes, if you see a man who looks like Doctor Who, run. He's not
Yeah.
Doctor Who.
No, no. He's probably some really bad cosplayer who spends way too much time at Comic Cons pretending he is.
You're right. So you can prey on the women. Um,
Right. He's so good at his role.
oh, he's ridiculously like sinister in this. It's like it's scary. It's scary how good he is at playing bad. Because he was great as the Doctor and being that like silly, kind of childish, childlike, person. And then you see him playing like this, and you're just like, dang. And he's played multiple villain roles after this as well, like or around
Yeah.
this time period as well. Um,
'Cause
you know,
Morbius.
yeah, I was gonna say Morbius. He's also in. He's in the what is it, Terminator Genesis.
Yeah.
It's a he's he ends up playing kind of hammy villains a lot of times, which I don't think is bad. I like a good
No.
hammy villain. Um,
And he does it so well. That's
yeah,
the thing.
yeah. But this one's definitely not hammy. This one's very sinister.
Yeah.
The implication is that the old octopus guy seems to be Jack from the past, but you find out later on that he's not. That he is actually trying to help Ellie and trying to get her to, understand that London's a dangerous place. You find out like through a vision that Sandy at one point encounters a cop, a vice cop, who's trying to get her out of being a prostitute and just trying to get her away from all that. And then you find out later on that that's who Terrence Stamp's character is, and just
Yep.
the old man version of that. And I love that too, but I mean, that goes into why he was still kind of creepy because he lived that life of being a vice cop. He'd been around all of that for so long
Yeah.
that in some ways it even infected him. That it's kind of hard to not let some of that seep into who you are, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially being a vice cop in the 60s.
yeah, like
Could you imagine?
man, I mean, because you assume that at least through the 60s, 70s, and 80s, I mean, that's a rough time period to be a vice cop through all of that. Um, but yeah, I mean, because I mean, look at that. Like we this movie is showing you this dark kind of seedy version of this, but we also have um movies that show us kind of like that idealized version of that, like in the Austin Powers movies. You
Yep.
look at, oh, the swinging 60s, everything was groovy and blah blah blah, and we have that version of that shows London at that time and everything was hip and cool and everything was great and everything. And then I love that this movie kind of goes, yeah, but no.
Hmm.
So it's like that's what's great about this movie in so many ways is it takes that viewpoint of going, sure, there were moments like that, but really underneath it all, there was this really seedy, gross part to it that people were taking advantage of.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so I really enjoy the movie for that, and just all of the characters. Just I don't know, just everybody's doing great in this. Um, it comes to a head. Ellie's trying to figure out, because the reason why we find out that the old man is a cop and everything is because he unfortunately gets hit by a car, and while trying to get him help, she's saying something about him being a bad person, and then um, the lady that owns the bar says no, he was a cop. And because she was trying to confront him about him being Jack and him killing Sandy, because that's what she saw in a vision.
Yeah.
Um, and but the vision was skewed, unintentionally, I guess, in a way. And there's a moment where she's back at what was it? Was it when she went? Did she go to the apartment and they had started to attack her there, and then she goes to the library? I think so, right? Because then she runs out in the street and they're out in the street.
Yes.
So all the men who she has seen in this room who have been um, um, uh, uh, customers of Sandy, that who also were abusive towards her. And so she's seen all of this, and these men are coming at her. And so she goes to the library to look up, women who were killed in the 60s in this area. And so she starts looking at all this other through all this newspaper footage, which was interesting that they still had a microfiche machine. Um,
Right.
but I mean, it makes
I
sense.
love
They
how
haven't
that's just
digitized everything.
Well, and I love how that's just like the norm of like I feel like we'll be making like thriller movies and crime dramas in like 2080 and still be having like the
The
microfiche
microfiche
stuff.
machine. Yeah.
Like because it looks so good and it's so appealing. You can't have that same effect like if you're like flipping through a PowerPoint on a MacBook. Like
Right, right. And a bunch of like scanned PDFs of the newspapers. You're just like, okay,
oh my
okay,
gosh.
okay. um, but yeah, no, but yeah, so she's looking up all this stuff, and it's interesting too because as you're seeing her try to find these women who've been killed and everything like that, you're starting to see also a bunch of men have been killed, um, also around the same time period. Like that's what ends up happening. She's not seeing it as the audience, we're seeing it, but as she's like scanning through, we start seeing these articles about a man. She's dismissing those because she doesn't care. She's like, oh
Yeah.
no, this isn't what I'm looking for. But you start seeing this pattern of men who've been killed. Um, and then earlier she had gone to the cops to tell them that something was going on and that she thinks this person was killed, but she didn't know by who. So she had no evidence, and the cops are just like, okay, whatever. um,
Right.
and then but that comes back later. She goes back. She decides that she's going to after she almost attacks her classmate in the library, but is thankfully saved by John. um they he she decides she's going to go home. She's just going to leave. She's going to go back home. And John says that he can drive her. And so they go back to her little apartment, her flat, I guess you would say. She calls it a bed sit. And I did look that up. A bed sit is like a little room that's got a kitchenette and a bathroom. It's basically a little apartment.
Little studio
It's got
apartment, yeah.
yeah. So she's got a little apartment. And so they go back, and she's about to go upstairs, but then the landlady, Miss Collins, pulls her aside and like, hey, what's going on? And she tells her, hey, I need to leave. But she tells her, hey, just come in, have a cup of tea. Um, and meanwhile, she tells her there's some stuff on the or a piece of mail for her. So she's looking through the mail, finds her piece of mail or whatever. You as an audience member have seen this, hopefully, but there's a little clue there in the mail that amongst amongst her one mail, all the other mail is addressed to an Alexandra Collins, which you found out earlier that Sandy's real name is Alexandra. So so what?
It's a good subtle way to like twist, like show the twists
Yeah, to
without
show the twist
being,
just
yeah.
slightly ahead of the actual full reveal. And then she comes back out, she gives her some tea, but the tea has been spiked with something. We don't know. I like the funny thing is like I don't know if it's supposed to kill her or supposed to just knock her out. It's never really said. I thought she was trying to kill her, honestly. But never really. I mean, it makes her loopy and everything, but she never passes out, never succumbs to it fully, or not for a
Yeah.
while anyway.
I would imagine that's probably what she'd been using on the men, so that way that
Yeah,
she could, because it's in my serial killer writing mind of writing stories like that, I'd be like, oh, you'd want them to be slightly awake still while you're enacting your revenge, and
yeah,
so it's
yeah.
probably one of those of like she probably just
Sense.
has like
Yeah,
a
make him
cabinet
sluggish. Yeah,
full
make him
of
sluggish and
full
slow.
of
Yeah,
stuff.
that makes a lot of sense. I like that idea. But yeah, so she's gonna kill her, but then John comes back, just trying to, he was there the whole time, but he was just waiting outside. But then he's knocking on the door. He comes in, and Mrs. Collins stabs him, and then Ellie tries to run upstairs. Meanwhile, a fire got started, um, and so things are starting to, burn downstairs, and so she's trying to get up the stairs, but she keeps flashing back and forth between Mrs. Collins and Sandy, the way she's viewing her. She makes it up to her apartment and barricades herself in, but that's when the male ghosts all start coming out again at her. And but she realizes that before they were all kind of faceless, but then their faces start to kind of come in to view. They become more real to her. And then one of them holds out the phone and says, "Help."
Yep.
And so these men weren't trying to attack her, they were trying to get help from her, because you find out through all of this that Mrs. Collins was formerly Sandy, and she's still alive. She was not murdered. That she's been alive this whole time, and that actually she was the one murdering all of these Johns, who and after she murdered Jack, she kind of got a taste for it,
Yeah.
and started murdering all of them and putting them in the floor and the walls. So that's why Ellie's been seeing all these visions, is because all these men who have been in the in the floor and the walls, are trying to get out and trying to get her attention to, warn her about who Mrs. Collins really is. And I honestly, I know there's a lot of people who didn't like that twist, didn't like the revelation and everything like that. I loved it. I thought it was really
Yeah.
great. It flipped the script on a lot of that, a lot of the gender stuff of all that, and really gave it a lot more weight, than if Sandy had been killed by Jack.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a lot of fun, and it gave Diana Rigg a really great last movie, because this was her last
Yes.
movie. She died shortly after filming. A really great last role to go out on, and I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, it is. It's one of those things too, like the whole like climbing up the staircase thing and her saying, that girl died 100 times in that room
Yeah,
line is so good and it's so honest and real and it's one of those things is again, heaven forbid a woman have hobbies. Like let
yeah,
her let her go do her thing. And I think it's nice because it would have been such a letdown had you seen all this stuff with Sandy. She let all this awful stuff happen, and then she just gets killed by Doctor Who
yeah,
and goes out like that. And so it's kind of like one of those like, you know, it's an interesting twist, and I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I liked it. I thought it was a great way to kind of like round that character back out
yeah.
and show that even after she's done all this, she's still in the same house and she's still holding on to it because the trauma is still is there. So it's a very nuanced.
Well, I think it's part of that, but I also think she kept it because she didn't want anybody discovering the
That's
bodies.
that's also true. Just
So,
like, like could you imagine the smell?
oh yeah, no, and it's remarked upon too. She mentions that as well.
Yeah,
She mentions, well, oh yeah, sometimes the it's just the drains, they clog up or whatever like that when it gets hot or whatever. And it's I did think it was interesting too that she was smart enough to you know do all this next to a French restaurant that had a very heavy garlic smell as
yep,
well. And so that would help cover the smell of all the bodies rotting in the walls. So,
yeah. And I don't
um,
know if it's was an intentional thing, but there is a very famous true crime case in the UK about someone saying that, oh, there's some sort of weird rotten smell coming from the drains, and it was a man who was a serial killer, and he would like flush the flesh down the drains, and it
oh
got
wow,
clogged. And so that's like an actual thing. And funny enough, the TV show adaptation they did of it was starring David Tennant.
that's
So there's
so funny.
another Doctor Who. So I was like, that's one of those things of like, if you're familiar with like true crime in that area, that would be a
Right.
thing that would like, oh, that kind of like makes sense of like, oh, it's just a weird rotting flesh smell coming from the drains. That's a normal thing that happens here
Right.
in the UK.
Yeah, yeah. No, and I'm sure that that played a part of it. They heard about that and they were like, yeah, let's do that as a funny little like, mention in there for people who might know this kind of thing. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised at all. So,
Yeah, it's just and it's again, it's all that foreshadowing that you don't pick up on the first watch.
yes.
That you really warrants a second watch to see all the little things that you missed,
Yeah,
which I
exactly.
appreciate. I
Yeah,
like it when you
exactly.
can go back and catch new things on repeat watches of movies.
Well, and again, that's why I kind of like talking about this stuff too, is because then it brings up those little bits that I hadn't noticed in passing. And then when talking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, there's that connection. There was that little
Yeah,
mention earlier about the garlic, because I didn't even think about that till just now. And so it made a lot of sense why she would, you know, like again keep the house and want to make sure she nobody ever found out. Um, but yeah, it ends. Ellie and John make it out, and Miss Collins dies in the fire because she's tired of running, tired of fighting it all and everything. Um, and then you see, like I mentioned before, Ellie's got her little fashion show thing,
Hmm.
but at the very end, like she does she crosses a mirror and you see her mom in there. So
Yeah.
her mom's back, her mom is back watching over her and everything like that. But there's a moment where she turns to another mirror and Sandy's in it. And so now she's got another person to watch over her. And you kind of get this feeling it was for me, it was like I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. It's probably a bad thing. That she's got this other presence watching over her now. Um, but I doubt we'll ever get a sequel to see if anything comes of it. But it was an interesting way to end the movie.
Yeah.
Seeing
And
that.
it makes sense too. Of like she spent so much time with Sandy, and now it's kind of like the old Mrs. Collins is gone, and now Sandy, who is happy and colorful and bright and cheery, is there. And so it's almost kind of like the way I took it was like, oh, it's a nice nod of the fact that it's okay. Sandy's story is okay now because she's back to the happy, bright-eyed person that
Yeah,
she was because of things being uncovered. So that's
yeah, everything being resolved. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I could see it that way. Yeah, that she brought the real Sandy back around, and in a way she's giving her second life through those fashions.
Hmm.
And so I can see that, like, that being an interesting way to end it for sure, rather than where how I kind of saw it as more of a sinister viewing of it. So I'm glad you said that, because yeah, that makes it a little bit more happy ending. And maybe she'll maybe it was a goodbye, maybe it was a just one last final goodbye, or maybe she'll continue to influence her uh, along the way. You never know.
Yeah, it's definitely. I feel like that's a very Edgar Wright way to end the thing. It's kind of ambiguous with people looking at each other. Like
Yeah,
that seems
yeah.
to be the vibe of how things go in this movie.
But yeah, no, it's yeah, this was a really fun movie. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I think that it's definitely worth watch if people haven't seen it. If you like Giallo stuff, I think it
Hmm.
really hits those vibes really good. Um, I'm not an authority on Giallo at all, so I mean, your mileage may vary depending on how much you know or don't know about Giallo. But I think it does a fairly good job at
Yeah,
those vibes. He's obviously influenced by it, and pulled in some of that. Um, but it's I don't know. It's just an interesting, fun movie. I love everything about it. I don't know much of like 60s British music. But definitely was I thought he did a good job. He's always does a good job at the needle drops.
yeah.
And this everything that he did with this fit really well. Um, and I was talking on a previous episode about how he sometimes music, I'm not likely to listen to like the songs so much outside of like the soundtrack, outside of the movie,
Yeah,
because like whenever I go back to listen to it, I'm like, okay, it doesn't really, like, the music's fine, but it doesn't like connect with me as well as it does when it's in the movie itself. And I
yeah,
feel like, him, Tarantino, James Gunn, they do a really good job at really melding scenes with music, and the music really being like a part of that scene, rather than just being like, something tacked on. You see it all the time, like in regular movies where a song is playing and it works for it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's like perfect for that. Where I think with
yeah,
these songs are perfect for these things, and I can't imagine that any other song would work, or that the
yeah.
scene would work as well without it. So
I always thought that that would be a really fun job of like the person whoever works for like Fox or NBC and gets to pick out whatever popular song is going at the moment to fit for a scene at the end of a TV, like a syndicated NCIS episode.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, I don't know how you get that job, but that's the job that I want. I want to be the person that picks out whatever new Lady Gaga song is on the way to fit with
Right.
this episode of Law and Order SUV. But yeah, because it really does. That's one of the things. And that was the biggest complaint that I saw when I was like watching deep dives of the movie last night after I watched it was is like, oh, it's missing the thing that makes Edgar Wright, which is the comedy. I was like, no, the thing that makes Edgar Wright is the timing and the music and the
Yeah.
shots. Like comedy is so subjective. Like, because even you look at all three of the Cornetto films, and they're also vastly different in
Yeah. In
tone
tone.
and
Yeah.
humor.
Yeah.
And it just because it doesn't have the same type of humor as Hot Fuzz, which that would be a completely different movie if it did, but
Yeah.
it still feels like Edgar Wright.
Oh,
And
absolutely. This is
it
100% an Edgar Wright film. Yeah.
yeah. And so it's one of those that's like again, I wish it had gone a little bit more deeper into the horror, but I also understand he's never done straight horror before, so it's kind of like
Right.
we're gonna test the waters first. Like you
Yeah.
can't go from Hot Fuzz to Saw. Like you have to have some sort of you have to have some sort of middle ground.
And I don't think we'll ever get like a full horror movie from him. I don't
No.
think that's something that he's fully interested in. I think that horror will be things that he peppers in, like with,
Yeah.
this one and Shaun of the Dead. But I
Hmm.
don't think that he'll ever get to the point where horror is a major part of who he is. And I don't want it to be if that's not
No.
something he wants to do. I would hate for him to like be forced into doing something he doesn't want to do because I think that ultimately the movies that he's making are fantastic and very much his the way he views the world. And
Yeah.
so it's like he's definitely one of those directors who has a visual sense, a visual style, um, that you can pick out when you're watching his movies and stuff like that. He's very much in that like Raimi, Wes Anderson, like
Yep.
you know, kind of like honestly, he kind of feels like this weird little like connecting piece between somebody like Raimi and somebody like Wes Anderson,
Yep.
where he makes these like really kind of cute movies, but also makes these fast-paced, frenetic cuts um, and everything just works really well. Whereas Wes Anderson is like, I'm gonna make everything static and in the middle, and
Yes.
you know, and that works for
It,
me too. Like I love
yeah.
Wes Anderson's movies, but
Yeah. I have to be in a mood to be able to sit down and
oh
focus as much as I have to on a Wes
oh for sure,
Anderson
oh for
film.
sure,
But
100%, yeah.
because like I like the Royal Tenenbaums is one of my favorite movies of all time, but I had to be in a mood to be able to sit down and rewatch it. I can't sit down and just like throw it on for
Right.
fun. But yeah, it's just and that's the thing too, is we're having a weird like Giallo-esque renaissance right now. And I'm like, yeah, bring
Yeah.
on more of that. Like I'm a big fan because it's you can only take so many again saws and
Yeah.
Friday movies, and let's bring on the flashy lights and the literally just a dude with leather gloves stalking slowly through a street. Like I'm here for that
Well, and I
vibe.
think that's what's interesting about it too, because Giallo ended up morphing into the slasher genre.
Yeah.
Like when you look back at what Giallo was, it was very much a prototype for what slashers became.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of interesting when you see movies that are like this, or like something like Maxine. I think Maxine's got a
Yep.
huge Giallo vibe to it as well,
Yes.
where you could easily like it feels like it could enter into slasher territory. And being that it's set in the 80s, you would think that that was what it was, but I was getting way more of a shallow vibe from it.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that that's what's fun about it is you're getting these interesting things like a movie like Hard Eyes, which came out earlier this year.
Hmm.
Obviously it's a slasher because you got the mask and everything, but it still felt like it was really pulling from Giallo a lot more than it was pulling from slasher.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that, yeah, like you said, there's this like weird little through line right now where these movies are kind of picking up these threads, and I'm digging that a little bit more. Like even me being more of a slasher fan than a giallo fan, I can appreciate that they're going more for some more of that subtlety in what they're doing with the slasher stuff, and having a lot more fun with kind of like I guess the mystery more than anything. Um,
Yeah.
because
It's
I think
it's
that's exactly why I think Scream works so well for me
yeah.
too, because Scream is never the one person coming back. It's not a Michael Myers or a Jason or a Freddy. It's always somebody different. And the
Yeah.
mystery is inherent in the whole concept of it. You never know who's under the mask.
Yeah. And I think that again it's that thing where we're in that era of quote unquote elevated horror. And so I think people
Yeah.
are like wanting the slasher, but they're wanting a little bit more substance to it, which I think
Yes.
is kind of why that's these sorts of things like Hard Eyes and Maxine are coming out, where it's more of a this like the slasher moments almost feel more intense because there's so much more mystery and lead up to it. You don't think it's always just it's Michael Myers again. We know who it is, and he's 70 years old now. It's like, oh, we don't know what's going on here. So when it,
Right.
it's like this could be the boyfriend, this could be the dad, this could be someone we've never even met before. So it kind of adds a little bit of like, because I'm not a huge old school slasher fan, and but I'm really big into these more things. It's like, oh, there's a mystery for me to also solve with it. So I think it's a
Yes.
nice kind of like more modern evolution on a genre that I feel like has kind of went stagnant in the 2010s, and it's kind of like
Hmm.
slowly coming back now with these kind of new twists and things. And you can tell with like the new Scream movies, they're kind of having that same vibe where it's a more of the slow burn, and when the
Yes.
violence and action are on and it's terrifying, and
Yeah.
it's kind of a fun or a really fun weird niche spot for for those sorts of movies right now.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think that, with that rise in like, the elevated horror, that, we are definitely getting people kind of re-examining these familiar genres and tropes and stuff and kind of going through them and going, what can we do that um like elevates it, not in a way that makes it like art housey
Mhm.
and more palatable for mainstream audiences, but more of a let's do something to elevate it to modern audiences to make it more interesting,
Yeah.
not only for the audience but also for them to make the movie, because I mean that's a large part of it too, is like, well, we don't want to keep doing the same old Jason and Freddy crap because it got old in the 80s,
Yeah.
like, and so we don't want to keep bringing these guys back. Like as much as I find it fascinating when they do manage to figure out a story to bring back, Ghostface or Michael Myers or something like that. Like if they're going to eventually, because I know they will eventually will bring back Jason once the legal stuff gets untangled. I just want something that's, you know, I'm of two minds. I want something either that's going to be a very throwback, um, fun piece that kind of reminds you of what it was like. But I think we already got that with the 2009 remake.
Yeah.
So I want them to do something that's different and unique on its own that, you know, there's no other word for it, but to elevate it to a new status, to make it something that is worth going to see. If it's just going to be like, because that was what was fascinating with the Crystal Lake series that was supposed to be being made by Brian Fuller, that ended up. I don't know if it's been fully scrapped, but we haven't heard about it in a while since he left
Yeah.
it. But it was going to explore, each season felt like it was going to explore a different, like, each season was going to be like each one of the movies. And so it was going to kind of like expand and explore that whole mythology about who he was, what was going on, and all of that and the world around it. And so I thought, well, that's a really great way to do it. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's what worked well for. And I never really saw it, but I think that worked really well for um, the Bates Motel series as well. Like
Yes.
it kind of expanded and explored a lot of what was going on with the character of Norman Bates. And so,
It excellent TV show.
yeah, that's
I
what I've heard. Yeah.
loved it. But and again, that's the thing is it's like because you also have to sit down and think about like Freddy and Jason and Michael Myers. are also from an era where the scariest thing that was happening was you left your door unlocked kind of
Right.
situation. And so we have more modern stuff with modern problems. Like we look at it with like the new Texas Chainsaw nightmare that was on Netflix of like, oh, it's just a bunch of, influencers coming to buy a town, and it didn't quite work well because it was a different kind of horror. So we're in a different era. We're taking those slower mysteries and having to use things like the internet and like the microfiche, and doing the true crime
Yeah.
aspect makes it feel, I think, scarier than something like Michael Myers does, where we're like, well, I could literally hop on a hoverboard and outrun Michael Myers in 2025. And so that's why I think things like Last Night in Soho and Maxine and Hard Eyes, even though Hard Eyes was a weird thing, is like it's taking the familiar and again elevating it and modernizing it in a way that people who are now in their late teens, early 20s are like, oh, this is actually scary,
Yeah.
compared to being more funny than anything. Because like I wouldn't watch all the Child's Play movies, and I'm like, this is the most ridiculous. None of this is scary. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Well,
And
and
I
I
had
think that's what
fun,
was
but
smart about the Child's Play series is
yeah,
like they made it scary. They made it like even though it's silly, it's an inherently silly concept in a lot of ways. They made it scary.
yeah,
They also leaned into the silly, which I love. I love the camp aspect of
yeah,
everything about the Child's Play series. But it's something that comes over time.
yeah,
Because those first three movies don't really lean into it as much. Um, but yeah, no, I agree with you. I think rather than necessarily rebooting everything or continuing something, like I'm perfectly okay with Chucky continuing. They've been doing a great job with that. The series got canceled, but I hope Don Mancini and everybody will continue doing some fun stuff in the future.
I'm
But
sure he'll find a way.
yeah, but that's the thing. It's like somebody like that who has a passion for the character, who created the character or co-created the character and has been, involved in it every step of the way. I think that, and they've proven that they're willing to change with the times and to update and refresh and make it interesting every step of the way. That means a lot more than
Yeah,
let's keep going back to the well and doing the same thing. I think that, with the Halloween, recent Halloween trilogy and stuff, I like that trilogy. I think it's really well done. I think that they dipped into the well with the first one and gave everybody their classic, one that, everybody could be excited about the big battle at the end. And then, they gave us a little something else that explored deeper stuff in the next two. And your mileage may vary for those movies. I know not everybody digs them. I like them. Um, but for anybody who's just like, oh no, I just wanted to see, Michael and Laurie like battle it out, you still have that first movie.
yeah,
Enjoy that 2018 Halloween and just stop there. But I like that they took the chance and they said, look, we're going to do something different. We're going to explore different ideas in each one of these. And you know, and I think that was a really good decision on their part with doing that. Again, people can disagree with me and they probably will. But I think that, taking that chance and doing something different rather than just continually making basically the same movie over and over again, it got stale.
yeah,
And so you need to branch out and do different things and explore different things. And I'd rather than going back to that well each time, do something different. And that's what I love about horror these days is it seems like most people are trying something different, or if they are going back to kind of like dip into familiar tropes, they're doing them in different ways,
yeah,
and really kind of having a lot more fun with it um than they could be. So and
yeah,
that just goes back to Edgar Wright doing this. Like we said, he's using horror as a vehicle to, and that's what's great about horror. I always love how horror really kind of tells you, like it's really a great vehicle for telling different stories. The horror is part of
yep,
it, but it's really about whatever that, like, you take the horror out of, like, not all horror movies, but out of the good horror movies, you take the horror aspect out of that, there's still an interesting movie there. It might not be the
yep,
most interesting movie, but there's still a dramatic movie or maybe a comedy movie or something else going on in there and that's what's great about horror too, is you can always horror mixes well with almost every genre.
Yeah.
And so, that's what he's doing here. He's using horror as a vehicle to kind of talk about not romanticizing the 60s or any past. Don't be nostalgic about the past, because the past isn't as good as we think it is. We
Yep.
always look back on the past as being better than things are now, because it's kind of what we want, but we only look at the good things, the things that we think are good, and not about the bad things that were actually going on underneath everything. And that's really what this movie is about, is underneath the facade of all the goodness, there was a lot of bad things going on as well. So
Yeah. And there's a reason, like, if you look this one up on IMDb, there's like 6 different horror tags because it fits into so many different boxes.
right.
And it's like, I agree. It's one of those. It's like I always say, like The Conjuring 3 is a romance movie with some horror.
Yeah.
like you can really pull it, and that's, again, I agree. That's what makes a really good horror movie, is that if you take the horror aspects out of it, there's still a good story, and the horror kind of, again, I keep using the word elevate, but it really does elevate
Yeah.
everything that's happening around it. And I just really think that this is just a fun, a kind of a fun departure from some of the other stuff that Edgar Wright has done. Because when you say Edgar Wright, most people think, oh, Hot Fuzz.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is such a big, step away from that. I always forget, I haven't seen Scott Pilgrim, but I always forget that, like, Scott
Oh,
Pilgrim is
yeah.
a thing that he did. And so it's a nice, I don't know if we'll get anything else like this from him. I kind of hope we do, but it's a
Yeah.
nice way that if you like his style and his stuff and you're looking for something a little bit less Simon Pegg, this
Yeah.
is a really great, option to sit down and get some popcorn and watch the lights off. It's a fun movie. It's a really
Oh,
fun movie.
absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Is there anything that we missed that you wanted to mention about the movie before we
No,
wrap
I
up?
think we covered it. It's good. I really want to watch it again.
All right. Well, why don't you let people know where they can find you online?
Yes, you can find me I am on way less social medias nowadays because I'm
Hmm.
trying to be healthy and smart. But you can mostly find me over on Instagram and Blue Sky and maybe Mockingbird. That's where I tend to hang out most of the time. But yeah, that's about it.
No, I agree with you. I've been doing a lot less social media, just more watching TV, movies, reading, trying to play video games more, just trying to have all that kind of fun stuff rather than scrolling constantly.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's it's not necessarily a bad thing, but if you're enjoying it, but if you start doom scrolling, definitely put it down, do something else. So
yeah.
it has its time and place for sure.
Yeah. I know when I've sent my best friend 25 reels in a row at 3 in the morning, it's time to step off. Because I know I'm going to get a very angry message at 7 when they wake up. Like, what are you doing?
That's so funny. I do the same thing. But yeah, no, it's that's it's kind of like late night is whenever I get onto Instagram. I'm like, oh man, okay, here comes the reels, the reels
Yep.
hole that I dive into. But it's but again, that's like, to me, that's when I do it because it's fun. It gives me a momentary break from something else I might be doing or whatever.
Yep.
And I'm a night owl, so that's I'm always up late and literally 3 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, okay, what are we scrolling today? Um,
Like, which cat video rabbit hole is going to take me down?
exactly. Oh man, but yeah, no, but yeah, getting back to this is a lot of fun. Check it out. Go follow her on her social media. Um, check out her books. She's got a lot of great books out there to check out. And I appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you for helping me finally get around to watching this movie. Took me long enough.
Well, we'll have you on again soon, maybe for that M. Night Shyamalan series.
Oh, I am a big defender of Split. I love that
Okay.
movie.
I don't have anybody
Even
for that one, so I can put you on for that one.
it's one of those that
I don't know. Really, there's people who don't like Split.
well, it's because of the representation of dissociative identity disorder,
Gotcha,
because it's
gotcha.
like we're not super villains that turn into monsters. And so it's kind of one of those of like, it's a little out of touch, but like
True, true,
that was
true.
like the first aside from Avatar, the first Shyamalan movie I saw in theaters, and I loved it. I had such a blast. So
All right. Well,
that's one of the few that I'll defend.
I am putting you down for that now. So you heard it here first, everybody. All right.
Anya.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, thank you very much, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. Creepy and Geeky is produced and hosted by Robert Clark. If you like what you've heard, please consider giving the show 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and share the podcast on social media to help spread the word. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. You can follow the podcast by going to creepyandgeeky.com and clicking on any of the social links. If you'd like to follow me, you can find my links at geekthulu.com. You can support the podcast by ordering teas and more on TeePublic or by donating to the coffee page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.